to everyone who's on the call. Thanks for calling in. And also, I just want to thank you for volunteering as part of the VEX Robotics competition. The VEX Robotics competition could not be possible. These events wouldn't run if it wasn't for the tens of thousands of volunteers we have in this program around the world. I mean, the amount of work we do is basically irrelevant unless we have volunteers like you who are willing to put their time in there to really give the students a positive, life-changing experience. So we really, really thank you for that. And especially we want to thank the volunteering to be a referee because it's one of the most challenging roles that our volunteers have, but it's also a really rewarding one because you get to interact directly with the students. And one of the biggest things about repping the VEX Robotics competition that's different than repping in other arenas is that we actually encourage our referees to help them, and we want you to help them avoid breaking rules as opposed to waiting for them to break a rule and then punishing them back. So we always train our referees to be, instead of watching the match passively, you're watching and preventing them from making infractions. So it's totally okay to be like, hey, watch out, team, you're about to tip someone there, like back things up for them and help them out. Like, oh guys, don't put that cube in yet. There's still 10 seconds before you can do that. So when we look at the referee position summary and what it takes to, what a referee does in a match, there's about, 6 major roles. Number one, they oversee that the fields are properly reset for each match. This doesn't mean that you're necessarily the ones who's doing the reset, but you absolutely are the ones who are doing the quality control, making sure all the stars are in the right spots, the cube is straight in the right spot, make sure each team has all the teams have their preloads in place and their driver control loads. Referees need to be very cognizant of the time cycle of matches and help the other field personnel to keep things on time. So, you're helping the teams, you're moving things along and keeping the day going at a rapid pace. You're checking to make sure teams are placed correctly on the field and prepared to compete. Some events will have volunteers who are solely dedicated to making sure the teams are connected properly, but other events don't, and then, the referees can help get teams plugged in, their joysticks plugged into the field control. During the match, you're watching the match and enforcing the rules of the game, and, while doing this, you're interacting with the teams, trying to help them. At the end of the match, you will complete and submit a score by a score sheet or electronic tablet. And then, of course, we'll be participating in discussions with the head referee and other referees to determine official match rules when it comes to disqualification in those rare situations. So, in terms of responsibilities, there's really one major thing we need you to do before the event, and that is to read the VEX Robotics Competition Stars Prep Game Manual. About 22 pages, a lot of it's pictures, but you need to read through it a few times, and especially make sure you know all the definitions and all the specific rules. It's not enough to just read the rules because the rules rely on the definition. So you need to go through those, kind of understand definitions of scoring zones and what the definition, of entanglement is, et cetera, et cetera. All events will have a head referee. The head referee has a couple additional roles. The head referee is responsible for training all other referees and making sure that the referees are fully versed in the game. The ref is the liaison between the team and the repping crew. Realistically, if a team has a complaint or wants to discuss a previous match, they should only be doing that with the head referee. If they're discussing with multiple referees, that's when misinterpretations between verbiage from two different people can come. The referees will work with the field manager to ensure that matches are proceeding in a timely fashion. They'll also work with the lead inspector to ensure that robots on the field have been inspected and are rule compliant. And of course, the head referee will be the final arbiter of all scoring decisions. In the perfect world at every event, we would love to have 2 referees on the field plus a head referee. That's the ideal situation, although we know a lot of our tournaments run with less, and you just have to kind of make do with what you have. But the big thing is, we always talk about, it's so important to have the referees not obstructing the field of play from the audience. Because remember, these kids work hard on their robots, and they want their teammates and their parents, their family to be able to see their creations in action. So it might be a great view for you to be standing between the audience and the field, but it's really not a good spot for you to be in. So we try and keep the referee station along the back of the field beside the drivers. So just going over the task list of what happens in a match, pre-match, you want to make sure everyone's in the alliance station. You want to make sure that it's only students in the alliance station. That's something we changed last year. There's no more adults allowed to be on drive team. Make sure the robots are ready. During autonomous, one thing to look for is to make sure that kids aren't using their joysticks in autonomous. The field locks the robots out from being controlled, but it's really, you want to make it clear to the audience that these robots are performed autonomously. A lot of referees will ask teams to hold their joysticks such that the buttons are facing outward, and that's one strategy for this. During the autonomous period, teams are not allowed to interact with the robots at all. It includes not being able to turn on a robot that isn't on. We allow that to happen in the driver control period, but autonomous is purely autonomous. At the end of autonomous, you need to quickly determine who wins the autonomous bonus. So some referees have been this is where you just need to be able to do a quick count and do some quick math in your head. Remember, everything in the near zone is going to be worth 1 point for a star or 2 points for a cube. In the far zone, 2 points for a star or 4 points for a cube. Sometimes it'll be obvious. If only one robot moves and it knocks the star off the fence, well then you know which alliance is won. But other times you may have to do that rapid count. One thing that we've seen more in tournaments over the last few weeks is there are some teams who are hanging in autonomous, which is cool, and they get points that count towards the autonomous bonus. But you have to remember to include them in your quick count. I've noticed a few referees who just kind of forget because they're so focused on start and queue. During the driver control period, you're watching generally the whole match. Things that you specifically should be looking for is if any game objects leave the playing field, you want to be able to return them to the appropriate zone. That's the zone. And you want to watch. Hi, Brittany caller. If you can just move your phone so we can cut down on the amount of feedback we have. Thank you. This game is typically divided the field with the fence. There's less interaction between the opposing alliances, which makes it a very easier game to run. So, definitely had comments about that for the whole season. Post-match. You're going to discuss any rules violations you saw with your fellow referees and the head referee. Score the match. Have the head referee kind of confirm the score. Once that score is officially recorded, someone gives the all clear signal, allowing teams to take the robots off the field. Don't give them the all clear until you've counted everything, because as soon as robots get on the field, things are going to be knocked around and whatnot. And finally, someone, either the head referee or a designated referee, will complete the scorecard or complete the score on the tablet, hit submit, make sure the scoring table has it. And then you get started for the next match. So that's kind of generic stuff. Some general tips that we have for you: always warn teams if they're close to being penalized. One of the really common ones this year is that you're not allowed to enter your driver control load, that cube, in the last 30 seconds of the match. Some teams will forget about this rule, and they'll try and enter it earlier. If you see them pick that cube up early, just kind of be like, hey, Sally, don't put that cube in yet. You got to wait till 30 seconds. It's totally okay to talk to them like that. Again, we want to work with the team. We want you to always be fair and consistent to all teams, but I think that goes without saying. We want you to be friendly and positive. You guys are the direct line to the students. The adults that are going to interact with the most all day long are the referees. So you want to make sure you give them a really good experience and be really respectful of the fact that these kids, for many of them, these robots are their lives. They've been working on them since May, and they're spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day on these creations. So for them, these events are huge landmarks in their lives. So there will be times where teams get upset, they get frustrated, and they might take it out on you a bit. We want you guys to be really calm in those situations. We really don't want referees who are going to bark back. We want to make this a positive experience for the team. That being said, if students, or team members, and usually not the students, it's usually the adults on the team, if they ever become abusive, well, there's no reason that you guys need to stand there and take that sort of abuse. But remember, let's try and be easygoing with the teams and understanding the pressure that they're under. Referees, it's your job to enforce the rules as they are written, not as you think they should be written. You may think some of these rules just don't make any sense, but you have to enforce the rule as it's written because that's what the teams are playing towards because they've been studying this manual again since day. Whenever you're making a call, be vocal and visual so the audience and the teams know what's happening. And, I guess one thing we always talk about is there's a tendency from some referees who don't, it's like, oh, I don't want to disqualify that team. That's kind of mean. That's really harsh. But if you take that attitude, you end up punishing the team who was the victim of the penalty. So you have to be able to make the tough calls even if, they're not fun to make. So that kind of covers generic stuff. I just want to talk about a couple things in the rules that there's been a little bit of confusion over. Number one is the definition of the zone. It's really, really important to know that the tape line in front of the near zone, the one that's closest to the fence, is not considered to be in any zone. So if you have a star that's under the fence and it's touching the white tape but not touching the zone, that star is neutral. Remember, the front tape line is not considered to be in any zone. And just note that one's been missed before. High hanging means the robot is completely above the field perimeter, and that means it's not even touching the field perimeter. So the robot's touching the field perimeter anyway, it's not considered high hanging. It could be considered low hanging, but to be high hanging, it means completely above. Just scanning through my notes here. Anything else? Again, I mentioned it earlier, the driver control load teams keep trying to introduce that too early. Two major things to remember. One, it could be only introduced in the last 30 seconds of the match. Two, it can only be introduced on the alliance starting tile that's closest to the alliance station. This way the students are staying in the alliance station when they're introducing it. Again, feel free to warn them liberally, make sure that they don't violate that. So that's all I really had in specific things that I wanted to talk about. But one of the reasons we do this call is give you guys a chance to ask us questions and we can, go over some situations that you might have seen. So I'd like to open the floor. Well, actually, before I even open the floor to questions, Mike, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Hi, yeah, I'm Mike Martis. I work with the REC Foundation, and I currently have Michigan and Illinois, but I also supervise some other areas. I have two things I'd like to bring up, and one is when you go to start the match, make sure teams are ready. And it's always great to say, "Hey, are you guys ready?" Give you a thumbs up. But you can take it one step further, which will ensure that you don't have a false start. Get the kids ready when they first come through, and you only have to do this for one cycle. Have them tip their controllers towards you so you can see that the lights are on. Because, these kids are very excited. And sometimes they think they're plugged in, they think they're turned on, and their controllers are dead. They don't have the switch on. And so as a referee, if you say, "Are you ready?" and the kids are pointing their controllers to you, you can see the green lights and the lights lit up on their controllers, and you know that they're plugged in, you know that they're turned on. And if you understand the coding of the lights, you want to look for green lights. And this way here, you get not only a thumbs up by the kids, but you also get a visual that double checks the fact that you're ready to go ahead and start the match. Because there's nothing worse than 3, 2, 1, go, and then all of a sudden you get 5 seconds into the autonomous period, and the controllers aren't on, or they didn't have connection when they started the match, and it just causes a lot of confusion at the beginning. So, like Karthik talked about, if they forgot to turn the robot on, they can't touch their robot during autonomous, but they can wait till the match starts, and then they can go ahead and reach in and turn the robot on and get it started that way, but not during autonomous. So that's one of the things to get kids used to showing you the controllers. It really, really saves you a lot of anguish. The other thing that you're going to encounter, I still get this at events I go to, halfway through the match, near the end, usually it's the last 30 seconds, a team will say, your field quit, my robot won't drive, and they want a rematch. And they start saying, but your field quit. Well, most of the time, I won't guarantee all, but 99% of the time, the problem is with the robot. When the robot loses communication with the controller, it may be something as simple as the battery connection was not plugged in all the way, or the battery connection is worn out on the Cortex, or the battery connection, the wire going into the battery is getting old and it has a short in it. And when it loses communication, the robot will stop because the power is out, especially if they don't have a 9-volt battery in their system. And that's why we require a 9-volt battery. The other condition that happens is a robot may be poorly designed in that there's too much stress on the motors, and they will actually kick out the thermal protection on the inside of the Cortex, and they lose communication with the robot because all of a sudden it kicks out and the lights start flashing because it went into a protection mode. The first time they kick out that PTC or the internal reset, it's going to stay blinking for 7 seconds. And then they'll drive again, and then they'll turn real sharp because they don't know how to drive it. Turn real sharp and try getting the turn and the forward motion all at the same time, and they kick out breaker again because it's heat sensitive. And this time, it's not going to stay off for 7 seconds. It's going to stay off for about 12 seconds because the heat has built up. They're going to immediately, after the match, come to you and say, oh, your field was at fault. We have to have a replay. We have to have a replay. Replays are not issued. Those are serious things. And replays generally are not issued unless it is 100% verified that there was a field fault. And usually you can tell, almost always you can tell a field fault by if you look at the match controller that is on the 2 towers, it's on the field, and if it's dead, meaning it's not showing a green light, then you know that it was a field fault. But that's the only time that there's an actual field fault. And your tournament manager person can help you. And, and I have a tendency when I'm walking around, I watch these at the beginning. I like to see the green flashing light at the beginning. That means autonomous is working properly. And then it goes to yellow. And then once the autonomous period is scored, 3, 2, 1, go, it goes to solid green. And then it goes to yellow again at the end of the match. And we're seeing extreme reliability in this system. So you shouldn't encounter field faults for that. But if your field goes dead, which does happen, there is usually 2 reasons it goes dead. And your event partner and their support staff should be able to help you manage when that happens. And it goes dead because one of the controllers that were plugged into the cat cable that's hanging off the tower has a broken pin in it. And it caused a direct short into the USB port, and it turned off that field, turned off that tower. That's one reason. That does happen. And that would be, the field went dead, so you have to manage that situation. And then the other one is people walking on these cat cables over a period of time have shorted out these cables a little bit. So if you start seeing weird things happening to your fields where it's going dead, that's very important to have your event partner, if they don't know how to diagnose that, to contact their regional support manager if they're not there at that event. And their regional support manager, they have them by phone, can go in and walk them through the process for getting the field up and running again. Karthik, do you have any comments about when the field goes dead, what they should do?
No, the referees, I really think, should allow the event partner and the technical staff to really take care of that. Because again, as referees, we're not requiring you to be trained on what to do in these situations. I think it's good information that might given to you, but I think it's one of those things where to try and do your best to work with the others to have the people who are trained to get things taken care of. But all good points that Mike's brought up. So back to the topic of rules. Open up the floor now. Does anyone have any questions about the Star Trek game? Anything like that?
Yeah, my name is Chris. I'm calling in from Dublin, California. I did have a couple of questions, really quick.
Yep.
Question number 1 is we were at a tournament recently, and one of the things that happened in that tournament was there was a driver load that happened 2 seconds earlier than not within the last 30 seconds. And the team that did the load was DQ'd. And we kind of went back, and it was not on one of our teams. We were just observing it. But we went and looked at the rules, and it appeared that if there was a violation of that, the points were automatically awarded to the other team as opposed to the offending team getting DQ'd. Can you help clarify that? I have one more question, but
Yeah,
I'll follow that question after.
I'll do that one. That one's really easy. The rule's pretty clear on this. If an alliance does not legally introduce a driver control load into play, it automatically counts as being scored in their opponent's party zone. There is nothing in SG4 about disqualification. So that team should not be disqualified for incorrectly introducing the queue. It should just do the queue is automatically scored for the opposing alliance.
Got it. Thank you. So that's kind of what we thought based on the interpretation of the rules. So thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem.
The second one probably is a very easy one as well. When a object, particularly the star, sort of flies out and then it's heading to the outside of the perimeter, but it touches the fence and not the tiles, where does that come back to? Does that come back to the origin, or does that come back to the zone that it was? It touched the perimeter off.
And so it goes back to the origin. So what G9 basically says is it always goes back to the last place last zone it contacted, or where the last robot it contacted. So the fence is not, the perimeter is not considered part of the zone. So if it bounces off the perimeter and out, it would go back to where it was launched. Now, where it's different is if it were to bounce off a robot, or if the star were to bounce off a cube and go out, then it would go back to where that cube was or to where that robot was.
Got it. Okay, that clarifies it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Anyone else have any questions?
I've got a question. It's kind of it might be more along the lines of an inspection issue. But one thing we had come up, students are allowed to use Velcro straps. I mean, they sell the black Velcro straps at VEX Robotics. What if they have, a green Velcro strap that's not identical to what they sell online?
So our rules are pretty specific about this. I'm pulling it up right here. I believe it's R7.
Okay.
And so R7B states any parts which are identical to legal VEX parts. For the purposes of this rule, products which are identical in all ways except for color are permissible. So if, for example, the Velcro was wider than the Velcro that's sold by VEX Robotics, it would not be allowed. However, if it was the same width, it was cut from the same sort of thing, and the only difference was color, then it would be allowed.
Okay. All right.
And we leave it up to our inspectors to determine whether something's identical or not. And, again, we're not asking anyone to pull out a microscope or pull out a magnifying glass. Do the best job that you can, and try and be fair and try and be accommodating to the team.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Other questions, folks? Mike, do you have any other questions?
I have a.
Oh, sorry. Please go ahead.
So this is sort of a what-if question, but say if you have a robot that pushes a star under the fence, and that star gets pushed up like on top of another star or something. So say this robot's like pushing a big clump of stars under the fence, and so it pushes this one under, and this one star isn't touching the foam tiles anywhere. It's only touching the robot and another star in the near zone of the opponent, or like the robot's own near zone on the other side of the fence.
Okay, so the rules to address this one. So the first test you do with any scoring object, you look to see if the scoring object is touching a zone. If the scoring object is not touching a zone, then the next test to look at is it supported by a robot or a scoring object? If it is, it's scored in the zone that the supporting object is touching. So, for example, your star, if it's on top of another star and not touching any tile, it would be scored in the zone that the bottom star is touching.
But it's also touching this robot.
Okay, so now
Supported by the star and the robot.
okay, so if it's supported by both of them, give me 1 second to parse through this. So basically, if a scoring object, that's one that we actually don't cover with a direct example. So if it's supported, okay, so if it's supported by a robot and a star that are both on the same side of the field, then it's going to be scored in the higher scoring zone. We always get the benefit to the, like if the robot's somehow in the far zone and the star is in the middle zone, the star is being supported by both the star and the robot, then it's going to go to the higher point zone. And if it's supported by objects that are on opposite sides of the fence, somehow, which would be difficult but could be done, then it would not be scored at all. It would be considered difficult.
Okay, so if it's supported by a star on one side of the fence and a robot on the other side of the fence, not scored.
Not scored. That's what my interpretation would be on that one.
Okay.
That's a good one. I'm going to make note of that. Address that in Q&A tomorrow.
I haven't seen, I think it's Mike, I haven't seen that happen yet this year, and I've been to like 20, 25, games, different places. It's not, that's not a common occurrence. Usually, it's that the two robot on the red side and the robot on the blue side are both holding on to the star, and
Yeah,
they're both grabbing the star. That's most common.
Most common, and the other one that would be common, is for the robot to be on a clump of stars, and a robot from the other side of the field to be touching it, but not necessarily supporting it.
Right.
Where the support would actually be on the clump of stars.
So for something to be supported, when you remove it, it has to move, right? So
It has to move with the supporting object, yeah. Basically, the way you kind of visualize it is, if the object that you suspect is supporting, if it were to magically vanish, would the star fall to the ground, or would it stay where it is?
So does it have to touch the foam tiles to have moved, or does it matter if it moves at all? What counts as moving?
So a scoring object is considered to be supported if it would no longer occupy the same position if the supporting object were to disappear. So again, if the robot disappears, would the star fall to the ground or fall and land on something else?
Okay.
So it's not just about it moving, ever so slightly, but is it going to just, is it being, there's no other way of really explaining it other than is it being supported?
Yeah, okay. So if it pretty much stays in the same place, it just shifts a millimeter, then that doesn't count. That makes sense. It's hard to visualize anyway.
Yeah.
In certain situations, you can't even remove the thing. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And in those cases, we just ask you to make the best judgment call that you can. There are those odd, situations where it's very difficult to tell, and, you got to make that best judgment call. But the one thing to always remember, what the definition is for, the first test is going off if it's touching a zone. If it is touching a zone, all questions of support are irrelevant.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
No problem. Anyone else?
This is one of the cautions would be that when U.S. referees are out there scoring a match at the end, that teams don't enter the field, of course, until you tell them to. But quite often we will have teams that did not enter the orange cube in during the last 30 seconds. And it's important to understand that just because they didn't enter it in doesn't mean it's not scored. And so one of the clarifications a referee can make is to take that cube that's not been entered in and just place it in on the field so that it gets scored properly. Because they haven't moved it, they had no way to move it. So it's just important that you have all of the items where you can clearly score them. And the other tactic is when you get a lot of stars that are bundled up near the fence and they're on top of one another, and there's a robot, tendency automatically is to grab that robot and move it out of the way. Well, you got to be really, really careful, because what is that robot supporting? What is it not supporting? All of those type of things, because that would impact scoring and all the things that you just talked about. We try to think about supporting and which zone it covers in. And so that's where you have to be a little careful when you do the scoring, when there's a massive amount of them all next to the fence. And I would take an extra 10, 15 seconds to sort it out and not be too rash at pulling stuff away, because when you pull one away, it may be like the domino, and it causes other things to move in a direction that you don't want them to move in, and it could make a difference on whether something was scored or not scored. And that's where you're standing over the top of the fence and looking straight down often is a really, really good tactic.
All right, guys. Any other questions we have?
It's either this might actually be a comment versus a question. I'm an event planner, and this is actually our second event that we're hosting. And one thing we had come up in our first event was, and it was actually the very first match, we had some kind of an issue come up. It was something with our computers, and we restarted. Well, I had the referee or one of the volunteers actually pick up the robot and return it to the starting area. And when they did that, they disconnected a cord or something. So that basically from now on, I've been telling all my volunteers, let the kids touch their own robot. Don't you touch them, so that we're not responsible for something that comes up. And I was just curious if that's a okay thing to be telling them, and is that something you sometimes instruct your volunteers to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really good policy to never touch a team's robot unless the team gives you explicit permission. And in general, when it comes to removing robots from the field, teams should be the ones that are grabbing the robots and taking it off the hanging bar and such, where a volunteer should only really be touching a robot in case of an emergency or if the team has asked them to.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a good suggestion. All right, guys, unless there's any final questions, I think we can call this one a night. So any final questions? All right, if there aren't, I just want to thank everyone again for volunteering and being a part of the VEX Robotics competition. You guys are you're just providing these students life-changing experiences, and I just want to thank you for that. So good luck at your upcoming event. Have a great holiday season and a Merry Christmas, and hopefully Mike or myself will be able to meet you at one of these events in the future. Good night, everyone.